Hey, Cal.
I don't know if you understand.
Would you like us to do the board next week?
I'm good.
It's on here?
No.
No.
Came back from Los Angeles.
I'll put it in my phone.
You're
Oh,
cool.
great, thanks so much.
Thanks, man.
Really proud.
Ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm
Ready to go.
Let's do it.
I got my snacks, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Are we able
Do you
to
need more hot
start?
water?
I'm able to start.
You just said we couldn't.
What?
There's no starting or stopping. Sorry.
Okay, so.
I know I tried to do that joke before, but nobody heard it, only one person.
We second time.
We actually heard it, actually.
I know.
And we can do it once everybody's here.
Yeah, okay, I'll do it again. Yay.
Wait, did you find his name out?
Huh?
Did you find his name?
Yeah.
Okay, ready? So we get into some other lojongs now. We're going to do 5 or 6 lojongs during the rest of the course of this class. We've had the most famous one, which is the 8 verses of the Diamond Lion. Tonight we're going to do a brief one from the Kagyu tradition, from a Kagyu master named Gyawa Yangumpa. And he's one of the founding fathers of the Drupal tradition. In Kagyu tradition, there are different divisions, like Karma Kagyu. This is Drupa Kagyu. So Gyawa means victorious. So they, in that tradition, they considered him a Buddha. So these are personal advices, and they're very sweet and they're very beautiful. If I can find them. So these personal advices, it's like you're with your teacher. Let's say you had a heart teacher and you're with your heart teacher, and you're just, you're sort of both in a deep space and a profound space, and perhaps talking about some spiritual topic, and they give you their personal pith, advice, and instruction as to how to think and what to do, right? So these verses are like that. These are personal advices called Dhamma. So it's like you were sitting around, like, just having a cup of tea with your mom and chatting, and they were giving you these instructions, and like somebody's secretly taking notes. That's how these things came down to us. So he got these teachings from a couple of his teachers, one of whom was the Sakya Pandita, who lived around 1200, and he was very famous. He did things like meditating the 8,000 verses in Sanskrit and wandered around Tibet reciting 8,000 verses from memory, Prajna Paramita. And then he also received these teachings from Gutsangpa, who was another great Lojong teacher who taught Gyawa Yangumpa. So I want to just read a couple of them in English, and then we'll talk about it. So the first one is, it says, nothing that starts remains unchanged. Have no attachment, cut the ties. There's no happiness in this vicious circle. Get tired of it, find renunciation. Nothing that starts remains unchanged. Have no attachment, cut the ties. There's no happiness in this vicious circle. Get tired of it, find renunciation. Okay. The world is hollow and meaningless. Do not trust the lie. Your own mind is the Buddha. Go and meet your friend. So you can imagine sitting there with your heart Lama, and he says to you, this world is hollow and meaningless. Okay? Do not trust the lie. Your own mind is the Buddha. Go and find your friend. What do you do with that?
Sounds nice.
You prostrate.
things every other scripture. You ask someone to explain it to you, right? Well, hopefully, you're in deep communion and you understand what they're saying. The point of this is if two Lama and heart disciple were having a conversation, they said something profound or mystical to you, that it would make sense to you because you're in the zone, you're in the zone to get it. So it's just those of us who weren't in the zone have to then figure it out, right? So that's it. That's the end of Lojong. Then people who weren't there in the conversation spend years trying to figure it out, trying to figure out what they were talking about. And that's the difficulty of this style of teaching, is you really have to have someone explain it to you. If you try to interpret it, you'll likely get it wrong. You can't go around thinking that my mind is the Buddha, because you just mess up and it's not correct. So what did he mean when he said, your own mind is the Buddha? Go and meet your friend, right? I mean, if you teach this to someone new, they're going to walk around saying, oh, I'm friends with myself, I'm the Buddha, everything's great, nothing left to do, right? It doesn't work that way, right? And then they get hit by a car and they end up in a hell run, right? Something. So they're talking about your Buddha nature, right? And it says your own mind is the Buddha, right? It doesn't mean that there's like some little hidden crystal Buddha inside your heart that you just have to polish up and then you're enlightened, right? That's, I think, a common misperception, that there's like some little hidden enlightened part of ourselves that we just have to pull the curtain off of and then we're there. But this is not what they're saying. So there's no Buddha inside, and our mind is definitely not the Buddha's mind if you're an ordinary person. I mean, my mind is afflicted. It's not a Buddha's mind. So they're talking about Buddha nature, right? The only thing about me right now, which is Buddha-ish, is my Buddha nature. What is my Buddha nature? It's my emptiness, right? The emptiness of my mind, meaning I'm not very smart. No, maybe. What is the emptiness of my mind?
Your mind's ability to your mind's ability to change. The fact that it doesn't have a fixed nature.
It doesn't have a nature of its own. It's a blank screen, right? I mean, essentially, there's a blank screen to do projection upon here, right? When you say something's empty, you can say it's blank. It's a screen awaiting projection, right? So my Buddha nature is the fact that I have a screen ready to project Buddha onto, ready to project enlightenment onto, Buddha-ness onto. Okay, so I mean, unfortunately, the karma that I've collected in the past causes me to perceive my world and my experiences as this bizarre mix of good and bad, up and down, goodness and evil, sadness and happiness, satisfaction and dissatisfaction, right? Up and down, all over the place. If I had collected different karma in the past, if I had, say, started keeping my vows a couple of lifetimes ago or a couple of decades ago and engaged in pure virtuous activity on a consistent basis, I could already be projecting an enlightened mind onto the screen, an enlightened body onto the screen. Sadly, I did not collect that karma. And so I'm forced to have the projection of an afflicted mind, because it's how it's functioning, it's how my mind is functioning. So if my mind was afflicted from its own side, it could never become enlightened, right? Impossible. So the fact that my mind is empty or doesn't have any nature from its own side is what is the potential for it to become a Buddha's mind. It is the basis or the thing which can turn into the Buddha's mind, right? That's Buddha nature. The potential to become enlightened is the only Buddha nature that we have, right? Okay, so when he says your own mind is the Buddha, go and meet your friend, he's saying if you understood that your mind is empty and you kept your vows, you'd be forced to see your mind as an enlightened mind. That's all. And then you put this verse in the hands of an inexperienced person, and it just is a big problem, right? So we've got to be really careful in teaching these things, and that's why they were kept private for so long. That's why they were closely known teachings for so long, because when you get a lama who's in a mystical state or some kind of deep, profound state, and he says something which has a very resonant, holy meaning to someone who's on the same level, you get the ordinary schmucks who get it wrong, So we have to be careful. So next, there's another advice. He says, nothing but the Dharma means anything at all. Throw the rest out like trash. It all boils down to dying. Pack light and take off now. I say take off now. That's a modern translation from Compliments of Holy Geshe Michael. I mean, in Tibetan, it's actually take speed with dry meat. Which, to us is like, huh? Excuse me?
Take speed with dry meat.
Yeah, like, not that kind of speed, okay? They didn't have speed. There was think 1200, okay? No pharmaceuticals, all right?
Go on a journey like the Knights of the Round Table.
Yeah, beef jerky.
Beef
what they
jerky,
mean by
yeah.
that.
I was thinking of Doris.
Slim Jim. Snap it to a Slim Jim. That's the advice.
Take a Slim Jim.
Yeah, ooh, that's nasty. But it's the same principle. I mean, the idea is this, is like, look, like in the day, you know, you dried a piece of meat and you could carry it around for 6 months and it wouldn't spoil, right? So if you're gonna pack light, you know, you take your dried beef jerky, your Twinkie that lasts forever, whatever it's gonna be nowadays, you know? Pack light, they are light, I guess, they're light, they last forever, you pack a backpack full of Twinkies, okay, never mind.
Oh, then
So, what they're saying is if you're in a hurry, you don't stop to cook a meal before you leave, right? If you're in a hurry, you don't spend a lot of time packing. Like if you were really in a rush to get out of the house, you wouldn't be spending a long time packing. So then, you know, you just take off. It's just like you got somewhere to go, you just go and you get there. You know, don't waste time packing. So that's what they're getting to with this line.
It's like Passover with unleavened bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
The times are regularized to get out of here.
Yeah. And no time for yeast.
That like, I feel like I hear that advice a lot, and it's like an interesting thing to have to contend with when you're in a Western, like, non-monastic society, when I guess you're expected to like sort of make something out of yourself and spend the adequate amount of, because he's really saying like he's saying like don't make anything, you know, don't. So, you know, like people, I think about people taking like refuge in their careers and in like relationships and stuff like that, but it has to be a balance, because you can't like if you like you know,
Can't eat
like,
beef jerky every night.
yeah, man can't live on beef jerky alone.
Well, the way that I heard it wasn't like it wasn't saying don't build anything, but it was don't waste time
building stupid.
pursuing things that aren't what
Yeah.
you should be pursuing. So being like, oh, that's great, like the Dharma's great, but I'm gonna go like try to be a millionaire so I can buy a yacht. Then maybe I'll come back to it. But I think that pursuing relationships and a career are still okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a common, and certainly, you know, don't if that's not your path, but I think that commonly people interpret those types of sayings as like,
Drop
don't
it.
do anything.
Yeah.
Don't take responsibility for anything.
Live with your parents.
Live with your parents.
Look at my
Slim
parents.
Jim.
Live with your parents on Slim Jims. It's not what the verse is saying, okay? Let's go back to it.
That's what we're gonna walk out of here with.
That's what everybody's going to remember from tonight's class, right?
We'll carry on the tradition.
Okay, that is not the instruction of the Lojong, okay? Let's be clear, all right? Let's go back to what the Lojong is saying. All right, let's read the verse again, in fact. Nothing but the Dharma means anything at all. Throw the rest out like trash. It all boils down to dying. Pack light and take off now. All right, we focused on the last verse, but let's go back to the others. So, what he's saying is, you know, stop doing what you're doing, right? Nothing but Dharma means anything at all. And it all boils down to dying. So what's the test of what you should throw out? I mean, he's saying, throw the rest out like trash. I mean, you got to figure out what's the dross and what's the goal, right? What should we keep and what should we throw out? And so he's giving the answer there. He said, throw the rest out like trash. It all boils down to dying.
He's saying you don't take your name, your clothes, your career, your house.
Yeah, apply the test of death to every action you undertake. Is my current activity worth the next hour of my life? Right? Is it worth me giving an hour of my life to this activity? Is this what I want to be doing when I die? If I were dying in an hour, is this what I want to be doing when I die? Right? I mean, if somebody said to you, you got an hour to live, what are you going to do with it? Would it be working on your taxes? No. Or you pick your thing of choice, right? So, you know, constantly we have to check the things that we're doing throughout the day to see if they're worth our life energy and they're worth our spending our life on, right? Is it worth dying for? Because we might die in the next hour. You know, we don't know when we're going to die. And that's what he's saying. Spend your life well because you will die. you know? I mean, you know, it's like when we had I had the experience of coming out of my apartment. I was in 1 West Street, and I came out of my apartment and got into the elevator to go to work, and it was a normal routine day. And then the elevator got stuck and filled with smoke, and it was like, oh, I guess I'm going to die on the way to work today. Not what you expect 5 minutes before you, right? And this is what he's saying. He's saying, you don't know when you're going to die. You know, do you really want to? Is it worth like going to work if you're going to die? Maybe it isn't. Maybe it is. We have to talk about it, right? You can't just live with your parents and live on Slim Jims. So it's prioritization. You know, if you have a choice between doing your morning meditation and, you know, watching the news or reading the Times or staying up late watching TV, you know, which is more important, right? I mean, would you rather, if you're going to die that day, you know, would you rather watch a B movie or, you know, Good Morning America or read the Times or, you know, do something holy, right? For an hour on nutrition. So it's making these decisions all day long throughout your life, and it's very tempting. You know, it's very tempting to live in an ordinary way, which says all the ordinary activities of life are more pressing and more important. And the whole world says you're crazy if you don't do those things. You know, if you're not engaged in the modern stream of life, you're crazy. If you're not doing the things that other people are doing, you're crazy. I remember someone in my family used to really bug the crap out of him, and I wasn't living like the normal lifestyle like he was living. It's like, you know, you got the job, the success, the career, you know, spending all the hours, long hours at work. And I'm like, well, I got to go meditate for another month. You know, he's like, when are you gonna get married? When are you gonna get kids? You know, when are you gonna have a normal life? You'd be really upset. You know, it's priorities, right? But you have to ignore it, right? I mean, when everyone else is dying, then they'll say you were smart. Right? Of course, you got to wait a long time, perhaps, for that. But you know, in the end, you get your acknowledgement, right? So, spending your life purely is the smartest thing you can do. Everyone will die. Everyone has to die that's living an ordinary life. And Yawa Yangrupa is saying that, do I want to die doing what I'm doing right now? You know, sooner or later we'll be sitting around trying to make up our mind, should I practice or not, and then you'll die. It'll be too late. You know, it's like, well, I meant to practice, or I was doing other things which are more important, and then, you know, before you know it, your time is up and you missed it. So, you know, something like that. So he goes into then 6 keys which are important. Yawayangumpa, he says, look, there are 6 keys here. He wrote something called the 6 keys, and they're in the reading, so you can pick them up there. You don't have to write them all down. But he goes into important advices on how to live, which is an elaboration of these things, like as you were addressing Sam and Rachel. So the first key is put your death in your heart. This is the key for checking whether your practice is too tight or too loose, right? Like, how do we know if we're fanatical, you know, and out of balance and being a zealot, or too loose and not practicing enough, right? And he's saying that, you know, put death in your heart and check and see if you're tuned appropriately. How do you know if you're too tight? How do you know if you're too loose? How do you know if you're a crazy zealot or if you're lazy, right? So it's like a guitar string, right? If it's too tight, it doesn't sound good. If it's too loose, it doesn't sound good. So, you know, we don't want to be anal about it. So if your practice is too tight, you'll fail. And if your practice is too loose, you'll fail. All right? So would you be doing this if you're going to die in an hour is the bottom line. And that's how you check in with your practice, if you're practicing appropriately. So his second key is, he says, think of the viper's nest of the problems of this life. This is the key for stopping attachment at the bottom of your heart. So this means very simply to think about every good thing in your life, right? Friends, family, money, possessions, house, job, body, clothes, name, face, friends, family, you know, all of it. Every single one of these is going to be stripped away, right? Inevitably. So Don't focus on them. It's inevitable that you will lose them all. Don't fixate on them. Don't focus on them. Don't be attached to them. Don't spend all of your life energy working for these things, because they're transient. You can't keep them. They're temporary, and they're not the ultimate purpose and goal of life. Right? The ultimate purpose and goal of life is to become a pure being, so that you're abiding in a pure realm, nirvana, full enlightenment, whatever it might be. So, in a practical, functional sense, we have a certain number of hours in the day. We have a certain mental capacity, right? If my mind is thinking thoughts of what am I going to do at work, then it's not thinking thoughts of how can I help the people around me. It's real simple in a way. There's a certain content in my mind. It's either bodhisattva oriented or it's mundane. That's all. And so it's simply saying, get the mundane stuff out of your mind, whatever it is, whether it's I gotta have those shoes, or I gotta have that butt, or I gotta have that whatever, and get the how can I help that person in your mind? How can I benefit that person in your mind? It's very simple. Right? Hard to do, but very simple in concept. We have all of these elaborate, complex Buddhist practices and teachings, right? So many of them. But they all boil down to the same thing. There's a certain content which is in our mind, usually not directed by us, usually spontaneously arising, right? Not really aware, not really mindful. And the thoughts are just kind of an ongoing stream of discursive rambling, saying, I like this and I don't like that, how can I get this and how can I get away from that, and I wish I had that, I wish I didn't have this, and they're a jerk, and blah blah blah. It's like diarrhea, tinged with negativity or whatever. And all the teachings are simply saying, take control of your mind. Take control of the content of your mind. Period. Make sure your mind is filled with virtue. Period. However you're going to do it, whatever your method is, just make sure you're thinking virtuous thoughts, bodhisattva thoughts, loving, compassionate thoughts, wisdom, emptiness. Pick. You pick. They give you a menu of things to think about, okay? You can think about the 10 non-virtues. You can think about your bodhisattva vows. You can think about your higher vows. You can think about bodhicitta. You can think about ultimate reality. Think about any of it. Just don't think about all the other garbage. It's like that, okay? All right. Okay, key number 3. It's kind of a continuation. Let every thought be of what other people need. This is the key for making everything that you do Dharma. So this is really a big one for serious aspirants, right? Spiritual aspirants. It doesn't really matter what activity you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're in an office or having a normal family or watching TV at night. The point is that in the back of your mind, you have this motivation of, I'm here for other people. I'm here to serve other people. I'm here to benefit and help other people. And I'm doing this thing for that purpose. Yeah.
See, the problem with that is that these other people we keep talking about, well, we know who they are, and pretty much what they're doing is
Pissing you off?
well, it's not even with reference to me, or what they do or don't do with respect to me, but what they do and don't do with respect to others. They're not sitting there doing for others. They're, for the most part, gathering everything that they can get in direct opposition to the dynamic, which is propelling me to do for them. So I'm doing for them while they're busy doing for themselves at the expense of everybody else they could possibly lay their hands on. And so there's got to be some greater backstory to this. Why should I do it for those who are so busy doing for themselves? Why?
Why enrich the gluttons, in essence?
Yeah, they're doing pretty well.
There's 2 methods. Seeing them as your mother, or exchanging yourself.
Well, I'm not too sure
Yeah,
about
but
the
you're
old lady
you're
either, for that matter.
Mom didn't cut it.
Yeah.
But go to the Lojong text, because we're in Lojong. So stick, what did he say in the
You
7
gotta give me a
verses?
backstory here.
Well, you missed the first class. You missed the backstory.
Oh,
See?
all right, all right.
But see, the point of the first 7 verses of the Lojong is it's about karma. You cannot practice Lojong. And this is what he said tonight. You cannot practice Lojong. You will not practice Lojong if you're not thinking about karma and emptiness. You just won't do it.
Who's karma?
Your own.
Well, then it isn't a gift anymore, is it? That's just a different kind of bargain.
Well, it's all
Well, you
bargain
just
first.
said before that we're not any different from the other people, right? Weren't you just like bringing up that idea
that
that
level,
like,
yeah, sure,
right,
they're-
so we're all the
they're-
same, so wouldn't helping them help you anyway?
Well, why do I want to help them? If they're just like me, and I'm busy grasping all day long.
No, they're not just like you, they are you.
They are?
Yeah, isn't that what you just said? You like brought up that fundamental error, which is that if we're giving to someone else, it's
I didn't
Oh,
own
you
that.
didn't mean that?
I didn't own that argument, I was asking him to own it.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
no, I mean, you can answer it.
So go back to your question. What's your question?
Yeah, I mean, why am I so anxious to help all of these people who are busy selfishly helping themselves? I need a rationale here.
So it appears that they're sufficiently gluttonous on their own. Even if they're unjustly trying to get ahead of me, why should I help them get ahead of me and get things instead of me having them? Right?
Even if you left me out of it, they're busy
Okay.
taking from your pocket
All right.
and Hector's pocket and this nice girl over here as fast as they can. So why am I helping them to help themselves?
So eventually you stop seeing them as gluttons. You
But they
start
are
seeing-
gluttons.
And you start, and eventually you would stop seeing them that way.
I'd have to close my eyes real hard before I stop seeing them as close.
Your mind though, too. But you just said if you left me out of it, and I think that's the key point, is you can't be left out of it. And
All right, then
you-
include
the only thing you
me in it.
experience is
So
what you
I'm-
experience.
Then that's it.
So then I'm a glutton right along with the rest of them. And so what does all this accomplish?
Well, when you say them, okay, so I think we have to focus in a little bit.
The them who you want me to hasten to help.
Well, let's deal with an individual.
People-
An individual or a collection of
Hector, because
individuals.
he snickered.
All right.
I didn't
Yes,
snicker.
you did. Yes,
Each
you
couple.
Snickered.
Snickered.
different.
Smug.
I mean, let's say Hector is like got all the good stuff, and he wants more of the good stuff.
Yeah.
And he's saying, Bruce, I'm gonna shaft you good and stab you in the back and slander you and throw you down the steps so I can get more of your good stuff. Right?
Yeah.
According to the LOJONG, you would say, I collected the karma in the past to be treated this way. And I understand how karma works, and I understand that the only reason that this can happen to me is because I collected the karma in the past. And I'm going to behave virtuously in the present so that I have a virtuous future. That's all.
You're saying that I should consider this a reparation? Like,
Payback, baby.
is that it?
Payback's a
Like after
bitch.
World War I, Germany had to give all this stuff back to France because, is that it? This then is the redress of a bad bargain.
This is a mind training technique. All right. So LOJONG, these are LOJONG are mind training methods. So there are many different ways to think about karma and emptiness, right? So this is a series of ways that one can think about karma and emptiness and how to behave appropriately in relation to empty objects and karmic ripenings.
Yeah, but is it all simply a five-finger exercise, or is there some
What does that mean?
Well, in other words, I'm just practicing for the sake of developing the muscles in my hand, but I'm not really playing any music. I mean, it's a five-finger exercise.
Well,
or is there a ground in virtue here? I mean, do I actually owe Hector reparations, or do I?
Haven't we created the gluttonous people that we see in our lives?
Me?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Well, that's
It's all on
just
that,
general
unless you
misunderstanding.
can prove otherwise.
Well, isn't
You
that
can't
what-
just posit that.
what
You have to
this is
show
all
me that
about?
that's true.
The karma that you created, the karmic seeds that are ripening are these gluttonous people
When you're a greedy
you see in your
person,
life.
But you're justifying the premise by the conclusion.
no, when you're a greedy person and you're obsessed with acquiring things, you notice that other people are acquiring more than you, and that makes you angry and not want to give to them. It makes you feel self-righteous.
Oh no, I didn't
because
want
you
to give to them in the first place.
Well, exactly, that's my
That
point.
was the
You
thing.
are attached to these things, and so when you see people collecting other things, it makes you angry.
So are those
Only
people?
because they're unworthy. I'm in favor of worthy
Well-
people collecting.
What they're saying, Bruce, is that you're an angry, gluttonous person, okay?
Yeah.
I thought that was given. I thought that was a given.
Was that the point of agreement?
But can I say one more thing?
You can insult him, so we're
No,
good.
no, it's actually not about him.
Maybe about him.
Nancy,
You are on
I
TV.
don't know what Bruce is doing.
the other way that I see it when I get past my own personal anger about situations like this, now I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about when I see people that I'm like, now I have to give them something, is that the reason why they're comporting themselves that way, or the reason why they're living life that way is because they're ignorant and they don't understand what's going to make them happy.
What if they are happy with it?
I would fundamentally disagree with that. I don't
They're
think
happy when
there's
they go with it. They
happiness.
seem at the
And even
end.
if they're happy now, 5 seconds later, they're not going to be happy.
Well, that's the party line, but do you really know that to be true?
In my
What
experience,
if
yeah.
Bruce is trying to get us enlightened? What if Bruce is like an angel trying to get us
He's a,
enlightened?
that's
Yeah,
okay.
You give me too much credit.
What if he's just trying to run out the clock?
So we don't get to the last thing.
No, I just, the party line is all well and good, okay, but we should look around and see how we actually behave towards those around us, and not discount the fact that we have reasons for doing what we do as we do it.
Of course.
Okay.
But isn't that the point? The point is that all of our, according to LOJONG, all of our ordinary reasons for the way we behave are a source of suffering. You know, they say, I'm more important than others. Others don't deserve it, I deserve it. And then it gets into ignorant liking and ignorant disliking, which is I'm willing to hurt others to get things for myself, and I'm willing to hurt others to avoid suffering myself. And that's really the bottom line. You know, the bottom line with LOJONG and karma and emptiness is avoiding the ignorant liking and the ignorant disliking, which says, God bless that I have wonderful, happy things, you know, if I can do it ethically and appropriately and amicably, you know?
Yeah, it's all very tenuous, except for the fact that, as the young lady over here suggested earlier, it only makes sense if we can really posit and support the notion that there isn't any other, that the other is me, and me is the other, and that somehow there's a unitary existence, which is what makes it possible to interact in the first place.
The interdependent existence.
That the interdependence bespeaks commonality of identity, a common system. And then it stops becoming self and other. It just becomes the unit.
You're reacting to yourself, essentially.
Yeah, you're reacting to yourself. We redefine self.
Well, that is what it is. We're
Well-
just using self and other as pet terms to be able to like move around in this world.
And self and other isn't going to go away.
Right.
I think what you're saying is that gluttonous other, which we're getting advice to take care of, it has a nature of its own. You're discounting the proof of emptiness about your perception of other, and you could equally perceive them as not being gluttonous, which goes to your point, which is why you would take care of them, so you'd stop seeing them that way. If they are empty of being gluttonous, then behaving in the opposite way that you're perceiving them will force you to perceive them as not gluttonous. Eventually.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
saying. What's the
if you
time
believe
period
that
in
story.
this? Like, how many weeks does it take?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
I like that.
I just made that up.
Well, we went from finishing on time to not finishing on time.
Thanks, Bruce.
I don't mind.
You just gluttoned that whole
You
time.
ran out the clock.
I consider it a public service.
All right, so-
9:30.
So, you know, the third key was that the key for making everything you do the Dharma, right? Whether you're at work or TV or whatever it is to have the concept and the motivation of, you know, this is to help other people. And this is to rest so that I can help other people, or to actively help other people. And it's what you were saying before, which is, you know, and what you were saying before, which is, you know, do you have to leave your job and throw out your job? Just live at home with your parents on Twinkies and Slim Jims, you know? And saying no, or saying clearly that's not the case, you know? I mean, this is a big one for aspiring practitioners. It's like, do I have to just go to the monastery and not do anything else, right? Do I have to just meditate all day long and not have a job? And a lot of Dharma people use it as a way to not have to get a job, you know, or to live with their parents or whatever it might be. I mean, I've run plenty of Dharma projects with a bad attitude, you know? I mean, I've done plenty of monastic things with a bad attitude, you know? It's not virtuous in and of itself. I mean, one can be in the office with the right attitude collecting great karma. So that's the third key. Fourth key, don't think of anything but your Lama. This is the key for turning your mind and theirs into one. What's the idea of your mind and the Lama's mind being one? I mean, simply put, if you believe that your Lama is a manifestation or representation of enlightenment or all holy beings, or an embodiment of that, then by becoming one with them, then you have those qualities. You acquire those qualities, or you conform to those qualities. So, to think that there's one lama that fits all is kind of crazy. It's like food. To think that there's one food that fits all is crazy. Everybody's heart lama, personal lama, is unique to them, and it has to be a right fit. But once you find one that fits you well, then the advice here is to spend your whole day thinking about them, and fantasizing about them, what their mind is like, their good qualities, serving them, being with them, trying to commune with them, to take on by their presence and osmosis and behavior and all the rest, their qualities. So sooner or later, your mind and theirs become one, right? I mean, why? Because you want that pure blissful mind where, making them tea is the same as like a millionfold orgasm, right? So, I mean, this is like kind of anyway, I'm just going to digress here. Can you digress?
Yes.
Let's say. If a being, male or female, is getting great bliss from every sound or every sight or conversation or thought, not much need to sleep with you. Not much need to have sex with you, right? For the bliss. I got your attention, right?
I hope there's a few pieces there I missed. Because
Think about it. Somebody started sex. Go back. Backtrack. The quality of a holy mind, right, is that it perceives sensory inputs blissfully. Whether it's a cup of tea, or conversation, or meditation, or whatever the case might be. So, a teacher with a pure holy mind, right, can be in bliss just hanging out, or meditating, or talking, or whatever the case might be. So it's kind of a good benchmark and acid test to apply to all teachers. Should they want to sleep with you? Not you, Bruce, personally. Okay? I'm speaking in general. Okay. Sorry.
What if it's to have a child?
Well, that's different.
I think you're talking about where if a teacher's like, if we do partner practice, it'll help you get enlightened or something.
Listen, for 20 years now, for 30 years now, I mean, I remember when I started the Dharma like 30 years ago, okay? I mean, it's like, oh, this Tibetan Lama said I'd get spiritual realizations if I slept with him, and I slept with him for 3 years, and I didn't get any spiritual realizations, and after 3 years, I finally decided to sue his ass, for breach of contract. I mean, this is a true story, okay?
Breach it. Oh, yeah, I get that.
So, it's not anything new under the sun. It's not... It's human behavior and it's human nature. And I'm simply throwing out there, while we're on the topic of the nature of mind and bliss, that when one is thinking about one's spiritual teacher, right, keep in mind the nature of a pure holy mind is fairly blissful in any context. That's all.
What about Shogun trying to play with the chance?
What about it?
He's special.
Okay. That was 40 years ago. All right. And that's enough said. But I just wanted to put out there that one should think of teachers and their behavior and the quality of their mind and what their activities are in the same context. Activity is tied to state of mind, right? And there are teachers, spiritual teachers, who like to sleep with their students, or like to sleep with whomever they can. Maybe it's just for procreation, maybe it's for fun, maybe it's under the auspices of something else. I'm simply making the point that a holy teacher and a holy being has a blissful mind in most circumstances, ordinary and extraordinary. Okay? And just a frame of reference, that's all. It came up here that, we were talking about admiring one's Lama, thinking of them, serving with them, being with them, right? So in that context of wanting one's mind and one's Lama's mind to become one, right? Look at the big picture. Okay. So, number 5. See the world and the people in it as angels. This is the key for stopping the idea that life is an ordinary thing. So the better your practice gets, the more that this thing becomes blissful. The less that this is an ordinary drink, and the more this is the bliss-producing nectar of deathless immortality. Right? So as the mind we were speaking at the break, as the mind transforms and the mind is repatterned and reconditioned, it can see everything. It can project a purer and purer experience of the world. And so this is the idea, and this is what he's saying here. He's saying that as you become pure internally, the world will start to transform, and your experiences will start to transform, and ultimately the entire world and the beings in it will change. Right? So he's saying start to think that way now, because it's going to be that way later. He's saying this is one of the keys, is start to see the world and the people in it as angels. This is the key to stopping the vision of ordinary life. Is this all there is? Is this realm, is this life all there is? I ask you.
No.
I don't know.
Hope not.
Get a microscope. Look under the electron microscope, right? I mean, there are all sorts of things. There are all sorts of things that we're perceiving that we never perceived a few years ago, right? So I think even just on a scientific level, you have to say, obviously there's a lot that we're not aware of.
What I love about that, it got me the first time you said it, that human evolution, the seemingly conventional,
100 years ago.
yeah, whatever, when we're living in accord to what our understanding of nature, we got certain results. And I think the odds got from 60 to 70 to 80% because we could see the previously unseen through science, microscopes, whatever. But to get 100%, we have to go to the ultimate. So it's beautiful that now that we can see how causality happens at a cellular level, we have a better chance of keeping health going, but not ultimate, because we don't understand all of it. We just got a little glimpse into a more ultimate thing, and I think that's a beautiful.
More you know.
We have a proclivity to relate to life and view life from one perspective, in one way. And what he's saying is that this world is not all that's going on. And the more and more purely we live, the more and more that other aspects of reality will be revealed to us. And so as we clean ourselves up, higher levels of existence will reveal themselves to us. And so it's an important key. All right, key number 6. Whatever comes, make it crystal. This is the key for making life turn to freedom all by itself. So this is one that can also be easily misinterpreted. And this life will become nirvana and paradise by itself if you see all things as crystal. Now what the heck is that? If I just visualize a crystal world, I'm in nirvana? I mean, so you see, it's easy to...
Is crystal a metaphor for diamond?
Crystal is a metaphor for emptiness.
Empty.
So what they're saying is that it means everything's empty, so the world around you is empty. So even if you think of the world around you as empty, will everything become nirvana by itself automatically? No. I mean, the Buddha spent a lot of time and energy collecting virtue to become enlightened. So it's not automatic, and it doesn't happen by itself. What they're saying, what this verse means is if you understand that the objects and the people around you are empty, you've got all the information you need to turn things into a Buddha paradise by keeping your vows sweetly. Right? So if you understand that everything's empty and you live that way, then everything will turn to nirvana almost automatically. It's almost an automatic process if you're living in congruence with emptiness, right? So, like that. All right? So there's one last thing. He says, his students who are sitting there said, oh, by the way, he also said the following. And then he gives 5 beautiful verses describing each of the 5 poisons of the mind, 5 mental poisons. Right? And these are mental afflictions that literally poison your mind and your body. When you think these thoughts, you become physically less healthy and mentally more afflicted. And it affects your intelligence. So calling them poisons is not a metaphor, it's actually a literal statement about their impact upon the mind-body system. Okay? So, you say dusha? So this is ignorantly liking, right? And this is what we talked about, liking things ignorantly, meaning I'm willing to do harm to get something, right? I want it, I'll hurt somebody so I can have it. So nothing wrong with having a lovely meal or a lovely date, ethically, appropriately. Nothing wrong with great sex, ethically, appropriately. Buddhism doesn't have the whole sex is bad thing. Just don't hurt the other person, right? That's all. So, not because it's morally repugnant, right? Why? Because it causes your future experience, all right? So, because of the laws of karma. So, you know, if you don't like money and you don't want money, don't give to other people, you know? So, liking things in an ignorant, stupid way is the problem, right? Buddha likes things, Buddha dislikes things, he doesn't like seeing us suffering, right? Likes to end suffering. Okay, the next of the 5 mental poisons, you know, normally there are 3, but in the Kagyu system they have 5. Next of the 5, you say Shedam, liking things ignorantly. One thing I have to say about the first, liking things ignorantly, once you get rid of liking things ignorantly, then you get all the happiness you want. You know, if you stop liking things ignorantly and you like things with wisdom, then you collect the karma and have everything you want, because you're no longer collecting the negative karma to get your things, right? So, all right. So Shedang is disliking things stupidly or ignorantly. The test is whether you hurt someone to get it, right? To avoid it. Sorry. First one's get it, the second one. And the result of that is, if you stop disliking things ignorantly, then you don't have any more pain at all, because you're no longer hurting people to avoid things. And if you don't hurt people, you don't collect the karma and have pain yourself. All right. The third is ignorance itself, not understanding how the world works, not understanding that all the problems we have came from doing those things in the past. All right. And if you can get rid of ignorance, you achieve enlightenment. Right? If you stop reacting in a reflexive way to negativity. Okay. You know, the Buddha said, you know, where do you think hell realms came from? You know, do you think there's some place, you know, where they pour oil and light it on fire, and there are sadistic beings who, you know, constructed the hells with cranes and such? No, it's a perceptual event. It's a function of our mind and the way it works. So, okay. Fourth is Nagyal. Please say Nagyal. Which is pride, means me king. Na is me, and Yel is king. Like I'm the king. It's sort of in Tibetan definition of king. I'm the most important one. I'm better than everybody else. So, feeling proud and superior. So, nothing wrong with being proud about doing virtue and doing goodness, right? That's a good thing. And if one does not engage in this, then one has everything that they need: money, knowledge, compassion, intelligence, dharma. So you become self-sufficient in your own wisdom and morality, and it's like you become a mature spiritual practitioner. So once one has dealt with this sense of I'm better than everyone else, you become what's called totally independent. It's like you become a pillar of strength in Buddhist practice, a mature practitioner, I would say. Okay. And then the fifth is jealousy, trakto. It's a state of mind which can't see others get what they want. I mean, as a bodhisattva, our job is to make sure all beings in all realms have everything that they want. So this is antithetical to bodhisattva activity, right? It's to say, I'm bummed that people have what they want. And it's the opposite of being a bodhisattva, right? I'm really unhappy that people got what they want, right? So, so like that. Okay. All right. So then there's one last quote, last quote, talking about ultimate reality in your practice. He says, the reality of things is beyond the mind, so reside in a state where you hold to nothing. So again, easy to misinterpret, right, for someone who's new. And so we don't teach these things to new people, and you shouldn't go teach these things to new people. If you're new, sorry.
Can you repeat that quote?
The reality of things is beyond the mind, so to reside in a state where you hold to nothing. I mean, of course, it's not beyond the mind. We're experiencing reality right now with our mind, right? But ultimate reality is beyond our current state of perception. And so the idea is if you study and practice carefully, you can experience ultimate reality, and that's what this means. We're decided in a state where you hold to nothing doesn't mean pretend you're in a heroin trip or the twilight zone where nothing's happening and nothing's going on. Like that. It means don't hold on to your view of yourself as an ordinary suffering being. Don't cling to this view of I'm the suffering John, or I'm the suffering Hector, or I'm the suffering Bruce, or whatever it is, right? Don't grasp at existing from its own side. Okay. All right. I think that covers it. Let me just double check and see if I missed anything. So the I guess the upshot of this is it's possible to reach a Buddha paradise if collector of karma, understand ultimate reality, and use whatever LOJONG verses and whatever mind training techniques are suitable and appropriate for us to collect virtue, not respond to problems in our life with negativity and being a source of pain. Right? All right. Sorry. It's Bruce's fault. Oh, I mean, it was my fault, sorry.
See?
It's all my fault.
I'm Bruce, and so is my wife.
I take over. Never mind. Go ahead.
Sashi Pukhi Jishin Metatram Rirel Lingshin Yinde Gempadi Sangde Shindu Mite Vivargi Dropin Namdashin Lajuparsho Hidam Gududatna Mandalakam Ninyatayami Gawadi Gawaku Sunam Yeshe Zabzokshin Sunam Yeshe Lejen Hui Dampa Kuni Toparsho.
By the power of the goodness of studying and discussing these things, may we quickly perceive ultimate reality, quickly end all affliction, negative karma, and abide forever in an enlightened state benefiting all beings.
Thank you for teaching.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And again, I have homework if anybody wants to do homework.